Perfectionism and the emotional need to get it right every single time can be paralyzing. No more so than when you're dealing with analog mediums, either cassette tapes or paper or, in this case, videotapes. Videotapes nearly as old as I am that fell into my lap, thanks to Kay Savitz, from the estate of Bob Cooper, master of satellite television and absolute Barnum in a whole range of technology. I didn't know much about him before, but as I'm going through these tapes, I'm starting to learn a whole lot. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It, a podcast about technology, history, and getting myself out of debt. Thanks to Daniel Boyd, Jeff Atwood, and the hundreds of other people on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. You don't have to worry about finding information on Bob Cooper. Just go to bobcooper.tv. His website, run by him and now by his widow, contains multitudes of articles, scans, and captures of all the work he's done over the years, talking about satellite technology, cable television, and the whole experience of broadcast and non-broadcast entertainment. It's clear he was a rascal and not afraid to butt heads with a rather intense industry, that of broadcast entertainment. In his different roles as salesman, host, raconteur, it's clear he had a message he wanted to get out. And during a time when civilian access to satellite technology was in a growth period, he stepped in and produced a bunch of media and actions that I myself am finding nearly half a century later to be fascinating. So, the analog television signal, in fact, the analog color television signal, is funky. I'll give it that. When I was coming into college in the late 1980s, I knew that NTSC stood for Never the Same Color. But it felt like everything was not that bad. Certainly not something worth making fun of. It was a miracle that any of this worked, that we were seeing all of these beautiful images for free, with commercials, on televisions. But looking through this era of video as presented by Bob Cooper, I'm struck by how much I kind of forgot. Because he's using what we would now call prosumer or discard professional equipment, there are an amazing set of hacks in these shows that he was putting out that feel almost elementary school production when you look at them. For example, he had a 3-sided or 4-sided box mounted with the ability to spin on which each of the show's chapters would be, and as he spoke about them, he would reach behind, turn them, and we'd have a new segment. The video-generated text moving out over green screen has a blur to it, a sense of being not quite black and white, really a sense of the edges of electricity, winding itself up and slowly bringing itself down, that I've forgotten. I had not even remembered that this was what 1970s technology felt like. Sending out a signal that would broadcast over televisions, there were a whole range of equipment meant to fix the signal enough to make it work. And what I watch on these videos are both handmade signs, unique fonts, and I guess if you're looking for the aesthetic, you find it in old videotapes when you would find a late night ad and it would tell you where you had to write in, often a P.O. box inside of a bus station, to get your cool deal, your incredible value. That bright blue and yellow lettering that was meant to cut through both black and white and color televisions is resplendent through these tapes. But all that said is the frustrating aspect of 3/4 inch U-matic tape as it's on its way out. These tapes were being stored in a warehouse in Colorado, and Kay Savitz took a plane out to repack it and send dozens of boxes in every direction, including my direction. So they were forgotten. They weren't really being used. They were shows that had long ago served their purpose, and you wouldn't ever look at them again. So Bob didn't, and nobody did. When I'm picking up these tapes and looking at their labels, they're a combination of notes to the broadcaster, indicators of what satellite transmitter they're going on, and the dates. Dates like July 5th, 1978, August 12th, 1980. These are long ago dates now. They feel like yesterday to me. But these tapes, adhesive with magnetic particles on them, once written to by machinery, are beginning to go. They've sat in one position forever, and now I'm pulling them out of the muck, attempting, as best I can, to make them work. The fact is that with these particular tapes, we are never going to get a digital signal out of them. We are never going to get a clean transfer. I'm doing my best and I'm using all of my skills, but these tapes have been through the ringer when it comes to time. They've slowly unwound, meaning I have to rewind them. They are slowly desiccating on the bottom part of themselves. So as a result, sometimes the video signal desyncs along the bottom. There's no signal, no piece of work that I'm going to be able to do to fix that. I have a time-based corrector, so the really, really bad stuff gets fixed. But ultimately, I've got to let it go. I'm watching these people talk about different subjects that were important to Bob and his culture at the time. Concepts like having entities, commercial entities, broadcast across open air, yet telling people they couldn't intercept those signals. Discussions of brand new channels like the 1970s Nickelodeon or Home Box Office, and what the plans were for making those available and what they would cost. Concepts like what role would regular people have in these standards and practices being enacted at a government level. There's a sense of satellite piracy as a concept, of grabbing on to video signals that were passing through the air. After all, how could networks not immediately jump at being able to bounce off a satellite and have nationwide movement of video signals without having to pay for all these transport mechanisms of the time? Being able to have your broadcaster in New York comment on things happening in Los Angeles in basically real time, well, what did it matter if it was being broadcast over open air? And for a while, what did it matter if somebody in Oklahoma or Colorado was also pulling down that signal? Having that experience, that environment out there, was of its time. What's going on right now, years later, is a person in an office transferring sad, broken tapes, relearning what makes them go, how to rebuild them, how to repair them, and keeping track of aging video heads, all of them falling apart slowly over time, and hoping that at the other end is a glimpse into the jackets, the words, the declaration of generations ago. And does this make every tape a nail-biter? A little bit. But do I also remember, it's never going to be perfect. We're never going to be able to extract a perfect version out of tapes this far gone. And maybe the amount we do get out will still be precious indeed. This is Jason Scott Talks His Way Out of It. Thanks to James Bekoyanu, Ernie Hershey, Michael Rubin, Dilip Reddy, Sean Kelly, Trixie the Cat, Joey Monk, Martin, Symbionts, Benjamin Guts, and Anonymous, along with the hundreds of other supporters on Patreon and elsewhere who have been supporting me and helping me get out of debt. Now, To be sure, we are staring down the barrel of a massive amount of computer technology being enacted to be able to work with these video signals and make them nicer. Whether we use the methodologies of so-called sharpeners that make things up out of thin air, or use smart filters that notice that a sparkle or a shift of a pixel from this frame to that can be mitigated, we'll probably see something nice come out of it. A person really dedicated to by-hand fixing up of old footage, they'll probably be able to make some very nice things indeed. But I always believe you've got to keep the originals. These large originals that I'm making of Bob Cooper's tapes can probably work as the source material for a variety of experiments, ever changing, ever shifting. Maybe we'll see perfection at the end. But until then, keep the originals.